At 5:15 inches the morning, the alarm rings inside a small apartment. The sound echoes through the quiet room where a young man is still lying in bed. Exhausted from working overtime and barely catching the last train the previous night, he struggles to wake up. Half asleep, he reaches for his phone and slowly begins to realize that morning has already arrived while his body still longs for more rest. Maekawa Akihiro, a 3-5. Maekawa Akihiro, systems engineer, wakes up early in the morning feeling exhausted. After checking his phone, he notices an alert about a system failure but sees that he has not been called in. With some relief, he prepares to start his day. Outside, the streets are already lively with lights and activity, and the cold winter air fills the room. As the year nears its end, he quietly prepares himself for another routine and monotonous workday. Akihiro follows the same routine every day, working, returning home on the last train, eating alone, and going to sleep. His life has become a quiet cycle of waking up, going to work, and repeating the same duties without change. As he reflects on the past few years, he realizes little has changed, except that he talks to himself more and feels older. With no major events in his life, he believes this uneventful routine will likely continue for many more years. As Akihiro leaves his apartment for work, something suddenly catches his attention. Surprised, he stops at the doorway, sensing that something unusual has appeared right outside his home. Akihiro suddenly finds himself in a strange white space. Shocked and confused, he looks around and realizes the door behind him has disappeared. Panic begins to set in as he struggles to understand what is happening. As he desperately demands an explanation and tries to grasp the situation, mysterious notifications appear before him. A skill called Sage is granted to help with situational awareness, followed by another ability called Perception after he requests information about his current condition. As Akihiro struggles to understand the situation, more system messages appear, granting him a new skill called Acquisition, allowing him to obtain information and experience. A mysterious presence identifies itself as an interface responsible for sending people from one place to another. Confused and overwhelmed, Akihiro insists that he was simply on his way to work and demands to be returned to where he came from. After demanding to return home, the mysterious interface simply sends him away, wishing him a safe journey. Moments later, Akihiro awakens in a quiet, natural place. The scent of soil fills the air, and the sound of the forest rustling surrounds him. The familiar smell and atmosphere remind him of the mountains he once visited with his grandfather as a child, bringing back a wave of nostalgia. Memories from Akihiro's childhood begin to surface. He recalls going into the mountains with his grandfather, who taught him how to survive in the wild. Together they hunted animals, prepared food, and bathed in the river. Young Akihiro admired his grandfather's skills and eagerly listened as the old man promised to teach him everything one day. The warm memories fill him with nostalgia as he reflects on those peaceful moments from his past. Akihiro slowly wakes up, lying on the grass. His body aches, and he realizes he is no longer in his room. Remembering that it is a weekday and that he has a meeting at work, he suddenly panics and jumps to his feet. However, as he looks around, he finds himself surrounded by trees and nature. Confused and disoriented, he begins to question where he has ended up. Realizing he is already late for work, Akihiro initially worries about his perfect attendance record, but quickly understands that it is the least of his concerns now. Looking around, he sees nothing but trees stretching in every direction. Confused about why he is in such a place, he begins searching the area, hoping to find houses or shops nearby. From a rocky spot, he observes the surroundings and decides to move forward to figure out where he is. Reaching a high point, Akihiro looks out over a vast wilderness stretching far into the distance. There are no buildings, roads, or signs of civilization anywhere in sight. Realizing he is likely no longer in Japan, he begins thinking logically about survival. With no nearby habitation, he understands he must quickly secure food and water while staying cautious, since the forest may hide dangerous creatures. Calming himself, he decides to carefully assess the situation before taking his next step. Akihiro checks his bag and finds a lighter, a charger, and a small portable tool set. Using what he has, he decides to create simple tools that could also serve as weapons if needed. Although he feels completely unprepared for survival, he forces himself to act and fashions a crude spear from a branch. Even a simple tool is better than having nothing, as he cautiously listens to the forest around him. While moving through the grass, Akihiro suddenly notices a snake nearby. It resembles a green snake he once knew, but something about it feels different. When the snake spits venom, he quickly reacts and uses a pick from his toolset to strike back, realizing the creature is dangerous and must be dealt with carefully. After narrowly avoiding the snake's attack, Akihiro manages to defeat it. As he examines the creature, a strange glowing presence appears before him. The entity introduces itself as Sage, a guide granted to him in this world. It explains that its role is to assist him. Moments later, another message appears, informing him that the skill Stealth has been transferred from the defeated creature. Akihiro introduces himself and begins asking questions about the strange abilities he just obtained. The guide explains that he was granted 3 main skills upon entering this world: Sage, Perception, and Acquisition. It also clarifies that the stealth ability he received came from the creature he defeated. In addition to these main skills, he can develop various sub-skills through experience as he continues to survive in this new world. The guide explains that stealth is a skill that allows Akihiro to hide himself by obstructing visual awareness, though most skills only become effective once they reach higher levels through training. Realizing it will take time to master, Akihiro begins to accept the situation. Looking around the unfamiliar landscape, he finally understands that he is not simply far from home. The reality sinks in that he has been transported to an entirely different world, leaving him overwhelmed and close to tears. Akihiro asks Sage whether the snake he defeated is safe to eat. Following the guide's advice, he uses his perception skill to analyze it. The ability confirms that the creature is edible. Relieved, he prepares the meat and notices that it even smells surprisingly good. Encouraged by the result, he realizes that his new skills may be very useful for surviving in this unfamiliar world. After cooking the snake, Akihiro eats it and finds that it tastes similar to eel. Grateful for the meal, he decides to continue exploring the forest while searching for water and a safe place to rest. While moving through the area, he notices a snare trap hidden among the leaves. The discovery tells him that intelligent beings live nearby. Realizing he could encounter them soon, he considers preparing a proper weapon first, hoping that whoever set the trap is friendly. Akihiro gathers stones that are easy to shape and crafts a simple stone axe. While working, he also discovers a nearby river, realizing it could provide a reliable source of water. With the axe finished, he feels a bit safer and decides to make a spear with a sharpened tip next. Just as he prepares to continue, a sudden noise from the forest catches his attention. Hearing a loud cry from the forest, Akihiro heads toward the place where he saw the trap earlier. When he arrives, he discovers a massive wild boar caught there. As he observes the scene, he also notices another person nearby, realizing he is not alone in this strange place. Akihiro looks closer and realizes the person near the trapped boar is a young girl. She holds an axe tightly, clearly preparing to deal with the animal herself. As he watches from a distance, he is surprised by her appearance and determination. Seeing her ready to act, he becomes both curious and slightly nervous about what she will do next. The girl stands before the trapped boar, gripping her weapon and preparing to strike. Watching from nearby, Akihiro realizes her small axe will not be enough to take down such a massive animal. As the boar suddenly lunges toward her, he quickly throws his own axe toward the creature, trying to help before it attacks her. The trapped boar suddenly charges toward the girl, forcing her to jump back in shock. Just as the attack is about to reach her, Akihiro's thrown axe strikes the boar. The hit stops the beast's charge, causing it to collapse to the ground. Surprised, the girl looks at the fallen animal, realizing someone nearby intervened at the critical moment. Akihiro rushes forward and positions himself between the girl and the boar. Gripping his weapon, he warns her to stay back as he prepares to face the beast himself. The girl, still on the ground and surprised by his sudden appearance, watches as he steps in to protect her from the danger. Facing the massive boar, Akihiro realizes there is no turning back now. Even a normal boar would be dangerous, and this monster-sized one seems far more threatening. Still, he has already stepped forward. Observing carefully, he notices the front leg he struck with the axe is injured. The wound makes it difficult for the beast to support its weight, slowing its movements. Recognizing this small advantage, Akihiro steadies himself, knowing that if the boar's tusks hit him, the fight will be over. Taking advantage of the boar's injured leg, Akihiro rushes forward as the beast stumbles. Seizing the opening, he drives his spear down with all his strength, striking the animal directly. The impact lands solidly, and the boar collapses. Exhausted but relieved, Akihiro realizes he has successfully brought down the massive creature. The boar finally collapses after the decisive strike. Breathing heavily, Akihiro steps back, relieved that he managed to survive the fight. As the creature lies motionless, another system message appears before him, informing him that the boar's skill, bravery, has been transferred to him. After the fight, Akihiro catches his breath, realizing how close he came to dying. He understands that if he had not prepared a weapon earlier, he would not have survived the encounter. Determined to live in this new world, he decides he must improve his fighting skills. Only then does he remember the girl he helped. Turning toward her, he checks if she is hurt, hoping she can understand him as he speaks to her. Wanting to show he means no harm, Akihiro slowly places his weapon on the ground and raises his hands. Kneeling in front of the girl, he takes a completely defenseless posture to prove that he is not an enemy. The girl watches him carefully, surprised by his sudden gesture. As Akihiro kneels with his hands raised, a message appears, indicating that his language recognition is being synchronized. To his surprise, he suddenly understands the girl. She confirms that she is not hurt and thanks him for saving her. Relieved to hear that she is safe, Akihiro feels reassured as the two are finally able to communicate. When the girl sees Akihiro kneeling with his hands raised and his weapon dropped, she blushes and becomes flustered. In her culture, such a gesture is considered the highest form of respect and is often associated with a marriage proposal. Believing that he has proposed to her, she shyly says she accepts, leaving Akihiro completely confused about how the situation turned into such a misunderstanding. The girl explains that in her culture, kneeling with both hands raised and dropping all weapons represents the highest form of respect between a man and a woman, symbolizing a marriage proposal. Misunderstanding Akihiro's gesture, she shyly accepts what she believes is his proposal. Akihiro is left completely stunned, realizing that his attempt to show peace has turned into an unexpected engagement in this unfamiliar world. Still kneeling, Akihiro realizes that his gesture has unintentionally been taken as a marriage proposal. The girl gently asks him to take care of her, and affectionately calls him her darling. Confused and overwhelmed by the sudden situation, Akihiro can only wonder what he should do next. Unaware of the customs of this world, 5-year-old Akihiro Maekawa accidentally ends up proposing after saving the girl. Realizing the misunderstanding, he feels that his fate may already be sealed. The girl happily welcomes him and invites him to her village. With no better option, Akihiro decides to go along for now, thinking it may be best to clear up the misunderstanding later while heading toward a place where other people live. The girl cheerfully introduces herself as Lizatia, a 5-year-old apprentice hunter. Hearing her age, Akihiro is instantly shocked. Realizing he unintentionally proposed to someone 20 years younger than him and still a minor, he panics, horrified by the misunderstanding. Lizatia explains that, in her world, someone who is 15 is already considered an adult and can live independently, even marry. Hearing this, Akihiro feels relieved that the situation is not as problematic as he first thought. Embarrassed by the misunderstanding, he quickly apologizes and awkwardly introduces himself, stating that his name is Akihiro Maekawa. When Akihiro explains that Maekawa is his surname and Akihiro his given name, Lizatia becomes surprised. In this world, having a surname is usually reserved for nobles. Realizing this, Akihiro quickly clarifies that it is simply normal where he comes from and asks her to just call him Akihiro. Lizatia happily agrees, addressing him respectfully as Akihiro-sama, which leaves him slightly flustered. When Akihiro asks her to drop the honorifics and simply call him by name, Lizatia becomes flustered. In her culture, doing so implies a very close relationship, something she feels shy about accepting immediately. Embarrassed, she asks for a little more time before speaking so casually with him. Meanwhile, Akihiro realizes that his attempts to fix the misunderstanding are only creating even more awkward situations between them. Akihiro wonders how they will move the massive boar, estimating it weighs around 300 kilograms. Lizatia calmly suggests that they first break down the catch. To his surprise, she easily lifts the heavy animal using a rope and a tree branch, showing far more strength than he expected. Curious, Akihiro activates his recognition skill and sees her abilities. Lizatia possesses high strength, along with several hunting skills, including small game hunting, medium game hunting, bird hunting, and archery. Curious about Lizatia's strength, Akihiro asks Sage about super strength. The explanation reveals that magical power in this world comes from transforming magical energy in the environment into usable force, and super strength works by amplifying the muscles with that magic. Realizing this world truly runs on swords and sorcery, Akihiro reflects on how different it is from the scientific world he came from. Meanwhile, Lizatia finishes draining the boar's blood and prepares to start cutting it apart, suggesting they cool the meat in a nearby pond before nightfall. Lizatia notices that Akihiro knows quite a lot about processing animals and asks if it came from his family's profession. He explains that it is something he learned from watching his grandfather, who used to hunt. After finishing their preparations, Lizatia says the village is about 5 kilometers away and suggests they head there. Relieved to hear that a settlement is nearby, Akihiro agrees as they begin their journey together. While walking toward the village, Lizatia asks if it is truly all right for her to become his wife. Akihiro awkwardly explains that he is actually 35 years old and worries that he must seem much older to her, especially since they are strangers. Lizatia, however, responds casually. She says he looks like he is in his mid-20s and believes relationships can start between strangers anyway. To her, age is not the most important thing, leaving Akihiro even more surprised by her perspective. Noticing his hesitation, Lizatia asks if he is upset. Blushing, she admits she is only comfortable with the idea because it is him, and that she would not accept just anyone. With a bright smile, she suggests they simply try to stay together and see how things go. She also casually mentions that there are ways to reverse aging in this world, leaving Akihiro stunned by the idea. Curious about her comment on reversing age, Akihiro asks Sage for clarification. The guide explains that rejuvenation can be achieved through special medicines, magical devices, or even divine miracles. Hearing this, Akihiro becomes shocked and starts wondering if gods truly exist in this world. Lizatia casually reminds him that this is a world filled with magic, deities, and incredible things, and tells him to stop overthinking it as they continue toward the village. After walking for some time, Lizatia and Akihiro finally reach their destination. From the hill, a peaceful settlement spreads out below them. Lizatia welcomes him to Taruka village. Seeing the houses and size of the settlement, Akihiro is surprised that the village is much larger than he expected. As evening approaches, Lizatia invites Akihiro to stay at her home for the night. Embarrassed, he apologizes and explains that he has no money to pay for lodging, but she insists, reminding him that he saved her life. When they arrive at her house, Lizatia calls out to her father. He greets her at the door and asks how the trap situation went, noticing the unfamiliar guest standing behind her. Lizatia introduces Akihiro to her father, explaining that he is the one who saved her during the incident with the boar. However, she also casually adds that Akihiro is the man who proposed to her. Hearing this, her father and Akihiro lock eyes in sudden tension as the unexpected statement hangs in the air. Akihiro quickly apologizes for the confusion and introduces himself politely. The situation feels extremely awkward, especially after Lizatia's sudden announcement. Her father, who introduces himself as Ast, calmly says he would like Akihiro to come inside so they can properly talk about what happened. As Akihiro follows him, he nervously wonders if he is about to face serious trouble. Inside the house, Akihiro is offered a cup of herbal tea while everyone sits down to talk. He compliments the pleasant taste as he relaxes slightly. Lizatia's mother, Tizna, warmly introduces herself. Meanwhile, Ast asks Lizatia to explain what happened, admitting that he is still confused about the whole situation. Lizatia excitedly explains what happened in the forest. She describes how a massive boar was caught in the trap and how she was nearly thrown aside by it. Just when things looked hopeless, Akihiro suddenly appeared and defeated the monster with a powerful strike. She continues the story dramatically, saying that after bringing down the beast, Akihiro threw aside his weapon, knelt before her, looked into her eyes with determination, and proposed. As she blushes while telling the story, Akihiro realizes her version of events is far more romantic than what actually happened. After hearing Lizatia's story, her father calmly explains that everything seems to be moving far too quickly. He clarifies that it is not that he dislikes Akihiro, but he believes it may be premature to start talking about marriage just because he saved her. Akihiro quickly agrees with him, relieved that someone else sees the situation the same way. Still, after observing him for a moment, Lizatia's father admits that Akihiro appears to be a respectable and capable person. Trying to explain the situation, Lizatia's father imagines that Akihiro must be a noble who fell in love with Lizatia and proposed in a moment of passion while struggling with family expectations about marriage. Embarrassed by the exaggerated story, Akihiro quickly denies it and clarifies that he is neither a noble nor someone of high status. He explains that in his world he worked as an accountant at a trading company, realizing that his real background would likely make little sense to people in this world. Akihiro explains that earlier that morning, he was simply on his way to work when he was suddenly surrounded by light and transported to the enchanted forest. Ast listens carefully while examining Akihiro's clothing, noting how finely made the fabric is. Lizatia is also amazed, saying the material is incredibly delicate and unlike anything she has ever seen, while Akihiro admits he has no idea how such fabric is even produced in this world. Lizatia's mother apologizes for examining Akihiro's clothing so closely and explains that she is a weaver, which is why she was curious about the unusual fabric. Meanwhile, Ast observes the situation carefully and concludes that Akihiro's clothes must have come from a very prestigious merchant. Realizing that he still appears suspicious, Akihiro decides it may be better not to explain everything for now. Since he has nowhere else to go, he politely asks if he could stay at their home for the night. Ast agrees to let Akihiro stay, explaining that his son is currently away working in another village, so his room is available. Though he calls it a humble home, he warmly invites Akihiro to remain as long as he needs. Lizatia shows Akihiro to her brother's room. As he sits down, she tells him she will bring warm water later so he can clean up, which he gratefully accepts after the exhausting and sweaty day. Lizatia tells Akihiro she will call him when dinner is ready and apologizes for not being able to prepare anything fancy. Grateful for her kindness, he thanks her sincerely before she leaves the room. Left alone, Akihiro relaxes on the bed and reflects on the strange day. Looking at his hands, he notices the marks from earlier have disappeared, and the thought of the accidental marriage proposal crosses his mind again. That night, Akihiro looks out at the quiet sky and reflects on everything that happened. He had always believed stories about being suddenly transported to another world were nothing more than fiction. Yet now, he finds himself living through exactly that kind of story. Nearby, Lizatia hums cheerfully, while Akihiro silently contemplates the strange new life that has begun for him. The next morning, Lizatia prepares breakfast while Akihiro sits at the table wearing borrowed clothes. She asks if he wants to work. Wanting to support himself, Akihiro explains that he cannot keep staying there for free and needs to earn money somehow. He asks if there is any job he could do in the village. That morning, Ast suggests that Akihiro should register at the Adventurers Guild if he wants to start working. During the conversation, Ast explains that Lizatia had gone hunting alone the previous day because his back had been acting up. Lizatia confirms that she is still an apprentice and continues learning hunting skills from her father. With that settled, Akihiro brings up the idea of joining the Adventurers Guild as the next step to finding work in this new world. Ast explains that the Adventurers Guild is a place that organizes different kinds of work and tells Akihiro he should register there first. Lizatia offers to guide him around the village afterward. As they leave, Ast jokingly says the two already look like newlyweds, embarrassing Akihiro, while Lizatia happily walks ahead to show him the way. Akihiro prepares to leave for the Adventurers Guild, wearing clothes borrowed from Lizatia's brother. The outfit fits him well, though the pants are slightly long. Lizatia explains that wearing anything too fancy in the village would draw unnecessary attention. Grateful for their kindness despite having no money, Akihiro decides he must find work as soon as possible. After thanking them, he sets out toward the guild, determined to start earning a living in this new world. Akihiro arrives at the Adventurers Guild branch in Toruka village. As he looks at the building and its sign, he notices that the writing resembles Japanese. At that moment, the mysterious sage ability activates, helping him understand the language of this world. After entering the guild, he is greeted by a receptionist who welcomes him and asks if he has come to register as an adventurer. Inside the guild, the receptionist explains the adventurer system to Akihiro. Adventurers are ranked based on their contributions, starting from rank 10 at the lowest and rising to rank 1 at the highest. The rank determines what kinds of jobs an adventurer can take and how much they are paid. She also explains that adventurers normally accept only one job at a time, and completing missions builds credibility and allows their rank to increase. However, the rank represents trust rather than pure strength. To complete the registration, she asks Akihiro to prick his finger with a needle, explaining that only a small amount of blood is required. Akihiro pricks his finger and places his blood on the registration card. The blood is absorbed into the card, magically linking it to his soul. The The receptionist explains that the card will serve as his official Adventurers Guild identification. Because it is bound to his soul, the guild can detect if the owner dies, allowing them to transmit a death report to the card reader. With this process complete, Akihiro's registration as an adventurer is finalized. Since he is new, Akihiro asks the guild receptionist to recommend a suitable job. She suggests a simple request, sending him to gather a plant called weas grass. Following the instructions, Akihiro heads out into a nearby field. Using his knowledge and careful observation, he searches through the tall grass until he successfully identifies the correct plant and prepares to collect it. Akihiro takes a guild request to gather 5 stalks of weas grass, a job requested urgently by the Alchemist Guild. The reward is higher than usual, but the receptionist warns that the nearby forest contains monster nests. Although the threat level is considered low, proper equipment is still recommended. The monsters commonly found in the area include horned rabbits and goblins. Even though such creatures might seem weak in games, Akihiro understands that facing them in reality would still be dangerous. To prepare himself, he borrows a simple tool that could serve as a weapon before heading out to complete the request. Using his recognition skill, Akihiro begins searching the field for weas grass. Confident that he will not mistake the plant, he decides to gather far more than required, aiming for 100 stalks so the task will be finished quickly. As he collects the grass, his thoughts drift back to his former life. Only a few days earlier, he had been sitting at his desk working on a computer. He wonders how his company is doing without him, though he convinces himself that the business will continue running just fine even in his absence. While gathering weas grass, Akihiro reflects on his past life. He remembers how he had been constantly busy with work, neglecting everything else around him. Because of that, his marriage slowly fell apart and eventually ended in divorce 2 years earlier. Believing it was his own fault, he buried himself even deeper in work afterward, using it as a way to escape the loneliness. As Akihiro gathers weas grass, he recalls Lizatia's confession and realizes that her words affected him more than he expected. Even though the proposal began as a misunderstanding, being accepted had still shocked him. He quickly pushes those thoughts aside, deciding that romance and marriage are issues to deal with later. Refocusing on the task, he continues collecting the plants until he successfully gathers 100 stalks of weas grass. After collecting the grass, Akihiro sits down to rest. His back aches from bending over for so long while gathering the plants, so he decides to take a short break before returning to the guild. While resting in the tall grass, he suddenly senses movement nearby. Realizing that something is approaching, he becomes alert to the presence of an animal in the area. While resting in the grass, Akihiro suddenly realizes that the presence nearby is a goblin. The creature wanders through the tall grass holding a crude weapon, seemingly searching for something. Hiding quietly, Akihiro watches the goblin and wonders if it has noticed him. Realizing that it might discover him soon, he decides to move first. Carefully circling behind the monster, he prepares to close the distance and strike before the goblin can react. Akihiro quietly closes the distance behind the goblin and launches a surprise attack. Swinging his makeshift weapon with all his strength, he strikes the monster from behind. The goblin staggers from the sudden blow, but Akihiro does not hesitate. Acting on instinct, he immediately follows up with another powerful strike, determined to finish the fight before the creature can recover. After defeating the goblin, Akihiro witnesses a strange phenomenon. A glowing light rises from the monster and transfers part of its abilities to him, granting him the goblin's spear technique and a small amount of alertness. Remembering the guild's instructions, he recalls that proof of subjugation for goblins is their nose. Although the task is unpleasant, he reluctantly prepares to cut it off so he can bring it back to the guild as evidence. Akihiro returns to the Adventurers Guild and submits the weas grass along with proof of defeating a goblin. The staff begin the appraisal while he waits inside the quiet guild hall. After finishing the evaluation, the receptionist informs him of the reward. He receives payment for the goblin and for 20 bundles of weas grass, bringing the total reward to 18,000 war. The guild staff explains that the weas grass will be used to make healing salves, which are essential because many people cannot afford to get injured without them. Since their supply had been running low, Akihiro's delivery was a great help. After receiving his payment, Akihiro leaves the guild feeling satisfied. Being thanked directly for his work gives him a strong sense of accomplishment, something he had rarely felt before. When Akihiro returns to the house, Lizatia happily welcomes him back. Surprised that they are already home, he greets them as well. Ast explains that Lizatia and he each managed to catch something that day. Meanwhile, Lizatia's mother is preparing dinner using the catch, even though she normally dislikes cooking. During dinner, Ast asks Akihiro how his first day at the guild went. Akihiro explains that he gathered 20 bundles of Weas grass and defeated a goblin, earning a total of 18,000 war. Ast is impressed, noting that most people only manage 2 or 3 bundles a day. Akihiro explains that his success is thanks to his recognition skill. Since his income is still unstable, Akihiro politely asks if he can continue staying with them until he reaches rank 9, and Ast agrees without hesitation. Ast tells Akihiro that he can stay for the time being and use his brother's room, since his brother will not return for another month. He explains that his brother had been helping cover work because a hunter from a nearby village was injured. Relieved by the offer, Akihiro accepts their hospitality. Soon after, Lizatia calls everyone to the table as dinner is finally ready. During dinner, Akihiro enjoys the meal and praises the food, especially the soft meatballs and the excellent seasoning. Lizatia happily accepts the compliment, feeling pleased that he likes her cooking. Her mother teases that Lizatia has been especially motivated since Akihiro arrived, which embarrasses her. Despite the teasing, the warm and cheerful atmosphere continues as they share the meal together. During dinner, the conversation shifts to strange rumors about huge footprints found in the forest. Some believe they belong to a goblin, while others joke that it might even be a Bigfoot-like creature. As Akihiro listens to the lively discussion, he reflects on how long it has been since he last said the words, "I'm home," and had someone welcome him back. Though he still does not know what lies ahead in this unfamiliar world, the warmth of the moment comforts him. For now, he decides to focus on moving forward and aims to reach Adventurer rank 9 starting the next day. The next day, Akihiro begins training outside the house. Using a wooden weapon, he practices his swings repeatedly, trying to improve his strength and fighting ability. However, he quickly becomes exhausted. Realizing how much stamina he has lost over the years, he reflects that despite practicing kendo intensely during college, his body has grown weak from neglect and long hours spent working at a desk. Seeing Akihiro exhausted from training, Ast warns him that stamina is crucial in real fights, since long battles can become dangerous without enough endurance. Concerned for his safety, Ast suggests that, besides training, he should also pray for divine protection so he does not get injured. Curious, Akihiro asks about it and learns that people in this world pray at the church to receive blessings from the gods. Finding the idea interesting, he considers visiting the church, and Lizatia notices his interest and asks if he plans to go there. Following Ast's advice, Akihiro decides to visit the church. After asking around in the village, he eventually arrives in front of a large stone building. Looking up at it, he realizes that this must be the village church, the place where people pray to the gods for protection and blessings. Akihiro enters the village church and is greeted warmly by a nun. He explains that it is his first time praying and asks her to teach him the proper way to worship. The nun kindly agrees and guides him inside, explaining that the church is a place where people give thanks to a real God. She also mentions that children often come there to learn reading and arithmetic, showing that the church also serves as a place of education in the village. Inside the church, the nun tells Akihiro to take his time praying while she waits in another room. Following her instructions, he kneels in front of the altar. He raises both hands, closes his eyes, and begins to pray. As he does so, he notices that the posture resembles the position he once used when proposing, making him wonder if that gesture may have originally come from a similar act of prayer. While praying inside the church, Akihiro suddenly hears strange messages from his sage ability. A warning appears, saying that a critical error has occurred and that an unknown system has been disconnected. Confused by the unexpected notification, he tries to understand what is happening. At that moment, a mysterious voice reacts with amusement, repeatedly calling the situation interesting while laughing, fascinated by what it has just discovered. As Akihiro continues praying, the strange disturbance from his sage ability suddenly leads to an unexpected encounter. A mysterious figure appears before him, dressed elegantly with a playful and theatrical presence. The man greets Akihiro warmly, welcoming him to the world and introducing himself as Shell, a being who claims to govern pleasure. Fascinated by the situation, he shows clear interest in Akihiro's arrival and existence in this world. The mysterious man confirms that he is indeed a god, explaining that all living beings in this world refer to beings like him as gods. Surprised, Akihiro asks about the meaning of being called a visitor. The god then asks Akihiro to introduce himself first. Nervously, Akihiro gives his name as Akihiro Maekawa. After hearing it, the god decides to simply call him Akihiro, remarking that it is a fitting name for what lies ahead. Shell explains that Akihiro is considered a visitor, meaning he is the first guest to arrive in this world from outside of it. According to him, there are countless worlds in existence, each operating independently and ruled by its own gods. Overwhelmed by the explanation, Akihiro struggles to keep up with the idea of multiple worlds and divine rulers, gradually losing track of what Shelly is saying. Seeing that Akihiro is confused, Shell decides to explain things using terms he understands. He says that the universe can be imagined like a network made of many independent servers. Each world functions like its own server, while the people living in those worlds are like terminals connected to them. The gods, on the other hand, act like administrators who control and manage the applications running on each world. Shell continues explaining that Akihiro somehow crossed the closed network between worlds and connected to the system managed by the gods. Amused by the unusual situation, he finds the phenomenon very interesting. Thinking from a technical perspective, Akihiro wonders if such an event should have left some kind of record or log in the system. When he asks about it, Shell reveals something surprising. Those records appear to have been tampered with, suggesting that someone interfered with the system. Akihiro wonders if there is an existence that oversees even the gods, like an administrator. Shell confirms this idea, explaining that the administrator is a higher concept above the gods and responsible for building the structures of each world. Realizing this, Akihiro asks an important question. If such an administrator exists, why did it connect him to this world in the first place? Shell explains that they already contacted the higher system about the tampered records, but received no response yet, joking that the support service is terrible. He then clarifies Akihiro's abilities. The Sage skill works like a voice chat support system that provides information, while recognition functions like a browser and screen reader. Another ability, Acquisition, is an administrative authority that allows him to obtain skills. Shell notes that these types of skills do not normally exist among the inhabitants of this world. Shell explains that the administrator's intentions remain unknown, but the gods still welcome Akihiro to this world. Akihiro worries that, as a terminal, possessing abilities similar to illegal software might be a problem, yet Shell reassures him that he is already aware of it. When Akihiro asks if returning to his original world is possible, Shell says that once they manage to contact the administrator, the gods will negotiate on his behalf if he wishes to go back. Until then, the gods will watch over him as a new resident of the world. However, Shell warns that living there without any fundamental skills would be difficult, so they intend to grant Akihiro several gifts to help him survive. Shell tells Akihiro that he looks forward to their next meeting and blesses him with good fortune as a new resident of the world. As he speaks, he reaches out and touches Akihiro's head, completing the process of granting the promised gifts. Moments later, Shell disappears, leaving Akihiro alone inside the church. Shortly after, the system connected to Akihiro activates again. The Sage interface reports that the connection has been confirmed, normal operation has resumed, and the previous critical error has been resolved. After Shell disappears, Akihiro is left alone trying to process everything that just happened. The amount of information overwhelms him, so he decides he needs to organize his thoughts. The system then displays several new notifications. It confirms that the conditions for skill acquisition have been fulfilled, and that new abilities have been integrated: prayer, formula control, attribute control, and control window. Realizing these must be the gifts granted by the gods, Akihiro begins to think about what they mean. The description of prayer suggests it is a skill that allows someone to petition the gods and receive divine revelations. Curious about this ability, he sits outside and decides to test it, asking the Sage system what exactly the prayer skill does. Akihiro sits outside the church, still overwhelmed by everything that happened. The system messages reveal that several new abilities have been integrated, including prayer, formula control, attribute control, and control window. Realizing these must be the gifts given to him, he begins trying to understand them. He learns that the prayer skill allows someone to petition the gods and receive divine revelations. Curious about whether it truly works, Akihiro decides to test the ability. To his surprise, the connection immediately succeeds. A god responds to his call, which shocks him because he had only intended to experiment with the skill. Embarrassed, he quickly apologizes for contacting the god so casually. The god, however, reacts in a relaxed and easygoing manner, introducing herself as Valda, the one who governs abundance. She explains that if Akihiro ever needs anything, he can simply call again. Although the brief interaction leaves Akihiro a little startled, he realizes that the prayer skill truly allows him to directly communicate with the gods. Akihiro continues reviewing the new abilities he received and asks the Sage system to explain formula control. The system informs him that this skill converts mana particles into magical power, and then transforms that magical power into structured formulas used to cast magic. Hearing this, Akihiro becomes excited because it means he can finally use magic in this world. He then asks about attribute control. The system explains that the magical power created through formula control becomes a fundamental magical substance, the base element of magic. For Akihiro specifically, the wind attribute has been added, allowing him to use wind-based magic. Although this means he can currently use wind magic, the system clarifies that attribute control skills are relatively easy to learn later. With enough study and training, Akihiro could eventually gain access to other elements as well. Akihiro reflects on everything he has learned. Although returning to his original world is not immediately possible, knowing it might happen someday eases his mind. Since he is now in another world, he decides to focus on learning magic. Determined to move forward, he plans to return home and ask around about where he can study it. However, he quickly realizes that before anything else, he needs to train his body, which has become weak after years of office work. During a meal, Akihiro asks if there is somewhere he can study magic. The others mention a mage who handles magical tools at the general store. They explain that behind the shop there is a magic tool store run by that mage who might be willing to teach him. Hearing this, Akihiro decides to visit the place later that day. Akihiro heads to the general store to look for the mage who might teach him magic. Lysatia insists on accompanying him and tells him to do his best training with Ast. After arriving at the shop, Akihiro enters and asks about the mage, explaining that he wants to study magic. The shopkeeper welcomes him and listens to his request. The shopkeeper directs Akihiro to a room in the back where the mage works. Inside, the mage greets him and asks what he needs. Akihiro explains that he heard he could learn magic there. The mage becomes interested, recognizing him as a potential new student. After observing him, the mage notices that Akihiro already seems to have awakened spell formula control and asks where he learned such an ability. Akihiro explains that he never formally studied magic and that his ability to control spell formulas awakened on its own after receiving a blessing from a god who governs magic formulas. The mage finds this interesting and tells him that mastering the skill simply requires repeated practice. When asked about his attribute, Akihiro believes it is wind. The mage then introduces himself as Bastia, and Akihiro gives his own name in return. Bastia proceeds to ask Akihiro more about his magical attribute so he can better understand his abilities. Bastia explains that wind magic is not his specialty, but he demonstrates it so Akihiro can observe. He carefully constructs the spell by defining the wind attribute, pressure, and shape, forming a small sphere of compressed wind above his hand and launching it forward. Akihiro watches in amazement as the air gathers and spins like a swirling ball of wind. Bastia releases the wind spell, sending the compressed sphere forward and striking the target with force. Akihiro watches in amazement, impressed by the power of the technique. Bastia then explains the basics of a spell formula. First, the mage decides which attribute to use. Next, they imagine how that attribute will be applied. After that, they visualize the shape the magic will take, and finally determine where the spell will appear before executing it. Bastia continues explaining that once the mage clearly imagines the attribute, its application, shape, and position without contradictions, the spell activates the moment the command is given. He adds that the final step is to imagine how the magic will move. He also notes that chanting is not strictly necessary. Speaking the spell simply helps stabilize the image in the caster's mind. After finishing the explanation, Bastia tells Akihiro to picture the magic striking the target and invites him to try casting a spell himself. Akihiro eagerly agrees. Following Bastia's instructions, Akihiro carefully visualizes the spell. He sets the wind attribute, defines the pressure, and imagines a small cone-shaped form. He fixes the position slightly in front of his finger and stabilizes the image in his mind. Once everything is clear, he directs the magic forward at high speed and executes the spell. Akihiro releases the spell, and the wind projectile shoots forward, striking the target with unexpected force. Bastia is shocked by the result and quickly tries to stop him. Immediately after casting, Akihiro becomes dizzy and nauseous. Bastia rushes over to check on him, realizing it was Akihiro's first attempt. He is surprised by the power of the spell, since wind magic is usually used to push or strike opponents, not to create such a precise and powerful attack. Bastia realizes that Akihiro compressed the wind far too much when defining the pressure. Because he is not used to handling mana yet, the excess energy rebounds and causes dizziness. Akihiro asks if he can keep firing the spell repeatedly, but Bastia advises against it for now. Even so, he admits the result was impressive for a first attempt. He also warns that if the spell had struck someone's head, the compressed wind could have caused serious damage. However, as Akihiro improves his control over magic, the recoil and side effects will gradually decrease. Akihiro asks about multi-formulas. Bastia explains that such techniques exist, but are still too advanced for him, as he is only learning the basics. To demonstrate, Bastia shows an example spell. He sets the Earth attribute, defines the unit mass and shape, and arranges multiple stones in a circle above his hand. The stones launch forward at high speed, then automatically convert back into mana after a short time. Watching the spell, Akihiro is amazed as several stones appear and move exactly as Bastia described. Bastia executes the spell, launching multiple stones that strike the target one after another. He explains that multi-formulas allow a mage to create several units of magic at once and control each one independently. In real combat, the projectiles can even be curved to attack enemies from different angles or from behind. Bastia adds that he specializes in earth magic and that many warriors use this technique because it can hit multiple targets simultaneously. Hearing this, Akihiro realizes how complex the technique is and understands that mastering it will take significant practice. Bastia advises Akihiro to continue practicing simple spell formulas and gradually improve his control before attempting more advanced techniques. When Akihiro asks about the lesson fee, Bastia asks about his job and learns that he is only a 10th rank adventurer. Seeing that he is still a beginner, Bastia refuses to charge him for now. He tells Akihiro to come back when he is free, and once Akihiro reaches 8th rank, he will start accepting payment for proper lessons. Grateful for the opportunity, Akihiro thanks him and promises to return. After leaving the shop, Akihiro decides to keep practicing magic, but first he needs money. He heads out to gather Wia's grass again. Using what he learned, he works much more efficiently than before, and quickly collects a large bundle. Later, he returns to the guild and turns in the materials, where the staff thanks him for bringing the Wia's grass and encourages him to come again soon. After leaving the guild, Akihiro notices several adventurers staring at him and begins to feel uneasy. Thinking newcomers tend to stand out, he decides it would be better to leave before any trouble starts. When he returns home, he hands over a small pouch of money as payment for the day's rent. Tija welcomes him back as he offers the payment. Akihiro returns home and greets everyone. He offers payment for the rent, insisting on contributing since they have been taking care of him. They welcome him back and mention that work finished early because the weather looked bad. Lysatia asks how his trip went and whether he managed to learn magic. Akihiro says he plans to train outside for a while. As the others talk about the rent he insisted on paying, Lysatia becomes curious and asks if she can watch his training. Lysatia and the others talk about Akihiro's determination. They agree that someone who works that hard deserves support, even if earning money in an unfamiliar land is not easy. Seeing how sincere he is, they decide not to stop him. Outside, Akihiro begins training, swinging his weapon repeatedly as he practices and works to improve his strength. Lysatia quietly watches Akihiro train. When she asks why he is not practicing magic, he explains that using spell control causes mana backlash, so he plans to practice it after finishing his physical training. Although she is surprised, Akihiro reassures her that he will get used to it with time. Lysatia still feels a little worried but accepts his explanation. Akihiro practices controlling his wind magic. Wanting to restrain enemies rather than kill them, he aims for the limbs and sets up a wooden log as his target. He carefully defines the spell's position, pressure, and shape before firing the wind projectile forward. The attack strikes the log, showing improvement in accuracy. Although some recoil still remains and the power feels slightly weak, Akihiro sees that he is making progress and decides to keep refining his control. After training for a while, Akihiro becomes exhausted and collapses from severe muscle soreness. Realizing he pushed himself too hard, he regrets not exercising more before coming to this world. Lysatia calls him inside as the rain begins to fall. Seeing how worn out he is, she brings him a poultice to help with his muscle fatigue. Grateful for her kindness, Akihiro thanks her while resting and recovering from the intense training. While helping treat Akihiro's sore muscles, Lysatia tells him that her father may not say it openly, but he worries about him. Akihiro says he is truly grateful for their kindness. Lysatia explains that her father asked her to bring the treatment and check on him. Seeing how hard Akihiro works moves her deeply, and she tells him that his effort makes him a wonderful person. Akihiro admits that he wants to do whatever he can to repay the family's kindness, though he jokingly notes that saying such serious things, while completely worn out, feels a bit embarrassing. As Lysatia treats his muscles, Akihiro complains about the itching from the medicine, but he thanks her for helping. Embarrassed, Lysatia shyly tells him that she thinks he is really cool, which surprises him. Lying there, Akihiro reflects that he never expected to feel this kind of youthful moment again after so many years. The next day, his body feels much better thanks to the poultice. Determined to keep improving, he heads out to gather more weas grass, planning to go deeper into the forest and, if possible, test his spell control in real combat. While gathering weas grass deeper in the forest, Akihiro spots two goblins eating something. Realizing this is a chance to test his magic in real combat, he quietly prepares himself. Staying hidden, he targets one of the goblins from behind. Carefully defining the wind attribute, pressure, shape, and position, he focuses the spell in front of his finger and launches the attack at high speed, executing the wind strike toward the enemy's back. Akihiro's wind attack pierces the first goblin, leaving it fatally wounded. The second goblin notices something is wrong and begins to react. Remaining calm, Akihiro prepares another spell. He forms a compressed wind projectile at the tip of his finger and aims carefully at the creature's left knee. As he executes the attack, the magic fires forward at high speed. At that moment, a new skill is activated, Alertness, LV, one transferred to him through skill acquisition. Akihiro's wind strike shatters the goblin's knee, stopping its movement. Taking the chance, he rushes forward and finishes the creature with a decisive swing of his weapon. After the fight ends, he checks for another skill acquisition, but receives none this time. The system indicates that no skill transfer occurred because the defeated monster lacked compatible higher-tier abilities. With the danger gone, Akihiro relaxes slightly and confirms the goblin is no longer alive. After defeating the goblins, Akihiro notes that he could have ended the fight faster by aiming for the head, but the guild only requested the goblins' noses as proof. Returning to town, he reflects that he is gradually getting used to using magic and is relieved that he did not suffer any mana backlash this time. At the guild, he hands in the materials and receives his reward for 2 goblins, along with the weas grass he gathered, earning a total of 28,000 weir. Pleased with the result, he considers buying a new pair of shoes with the money. A man approaches Akihiro after hearing rumors about a newcomer gathering large amounts of weas grass. Akihiro nervously assumes he might be in trouble, but the man quickly reassures him. He explains that herb supplies are running low and prices are rising, so adventurers appreciate anyone collecting medicinal plants. As ranks increase and injuries become more common, such herbs can be the difference between life and death. The adventurer praises Akihiro for gathering herbs and calls him Herb-kun, saying his work is saving lives. Akihiro feels relieved to be appreciated. As the man leaves, Akihiro reflects that he only wants a quiet, peaceful life until someone suddenly calls out to him. A young girl suddenly stops Akihiro and bluntly asks if he is a mage. Surprised, he wonders who she is. Another girl apologizes and explains that Akihiro's mana and magical flow look very clean, which made them think he might be a spellcaster. The girls explain that Akihiro's mana circulation and magical flow look unusually clean, which is why they believed he was a mage. Akihiro quickly denies it with a smile and says he is not a mage. After dismissing the assumption, he turns to leave, but the girls urgently call out for him to wait. Akihiro tries to leave, saying he is only a 10th rank adventurer and probably not useful to them. The girl, Ari, stops him and insists he listen. Her companion apologizes for approaching so suddenly and asks for a moment of his time. After being scolded by her friend, Ari reluctantly apologizes to Akihiro for snapping at him earlier. The girls sincerely ask Akihiro to hear them out. Seeing their desperation, he agrees to listen briefly. They lead him to a meeting room where their companions are waiting. There, a man named Deed greets Akihiro and thanks him for coming. Inside the meeting room, Akihiro introduces himself, while the group begins explaining the situation. Deed reveals that a massive slime has appeared deep in the northern forest. Unlike normal slimes, this one has grown over many years and is now large enough to swallow a person whole. Because of its size, swords are ineffective, and Wadis's fire magic is poorly matched against it. The group explains that the request comes directly from the guild, so they cannot refuse. Currently, they are the only party in the village with 7th rank or higher. They offer Akihiro 70% of the 200,000 Val reward and promise to cover extra expenses and help with rank advancement. Wadis notes that Akihiro has a wind attribute with exceptional control, making him useful for the mission. Akihiro hesitates, saying this task is far beyond what a 10th rank adventurer should handle, and that it brings him little personal benefit. The party explains they plan to leave the next morning. Since the mission is guild designated, a guild auditor will also join them, making 5 people in the group. The slime is deep in the forest, but still within a day's trip. Deed warns that if it is left alone, the giant slime will keep absorbing things, split apart, and multiply, eventually destroying the local ecosystem. Realizing the danger could affect the village and nearby work, Akihiro hesitates but considers helping. Akihiro agrees to help, though he admits he is still a beginner and might slow the group down. The others reassure him they will protect him, relieved that he accepted. As they plan to depart the next day, Akihiro worries that the situation has become more complicated and wonders if he will actually be of any help. Akihiro returns home late, looking exhausted. The man of the house asks about the hunt, and Akihiro explains that after the heavy rain, the forest was difficult to move through, and there wasn't much game to catch. Noticing blood on Akihiro's machete, the man jokes that butchering must have been tiring. Akihiro simply says he will sharpen the blade before dinner and assures him he is fine. During dinner, Akihiro mentions the giant slime mission. The family is surprised, realizing it is a dangerous task, usually rated for 7th rank adventurers, even with guild support. Although slimes are normally harmless, the one deep in the forest is different. Akihiro accepts that monsters are still dangerous, while the girl reacts with disgust, saying huge slimes are gross, despite never having seen one. Akihiro explains that other 7th rank adventurers will be there, so he believes things will be fine and decides to help since his abilities might be useful. Even so, he still feels uneasy. That night, as he lies in bed thinking about the mission, the man of the house simply tells him to be very careful. Lying in bed, Akihiro feels uneasy about going deeper into the dangerous forest to face an unknown giant slime. He reflects on his recent battles, realizing he has already killed 3 goblins, humanoid creatures that carried weapons. The thought unsettles him, knowing that in this world, he could just as easily have been the one killed. Alone with his thoughts, Akihiro admits he is scared. Meeting a god did not grant him an immortal body or overwhelming power. The abilities he received are far from a cheat, and even casting a single spell leaves him feeling sick. Unsure whether the gods are truly on his side, he realizes how fragile his situation in this world really is. Akihiro remembers his old life, ordinary days with friends, family, work, and simple hobbies. Compared to that peaceful world, his current life is full of danger. Lying awake, he admits the truth. He wants to go back. The fear of dying in this world overwhelms him, and he struggles to control the anxiety rising inside him. Lost in his thoughts, Akihiro doesn't notice Lizatia entering his room. She calls his name several times before he finally responds. Concerned, she explains that she tried calling him, but he didn't answer, and worried he might not be feeling well. Lizatia grabs Akihiro's hand without realizing it, quickly apologizing when she notices. Seeing he is awake reassures her. She explains she was worried because his expression looked darker than usual after returning home. Thinking he might be in pain, she instinctively came to check on him and apologizes for entering his room without permission. Akihiro thanks Lizatia, admitting he had been overthinking and feeling gloomy. Talking with her helped clear his mind, and he realizes brooding alone would have kept him from sleeping. Relieved, he assures her it's nothing serious. Lizatia smiles and promises to make a delicious dinner while cheering him on for the next day, though she quietly admits she is worried about him. Akihiro realizes that simply having a place to return to and people waiting for him brings him a deep sense of comfort. Feeling calmer, he begins looking forward to tomorrow, joking with Lizatia about the meal she will prepare, while she happily tells him to anticipate it. The next morning, The man warns Akihiro that the most troublesome creatures in the forest are wolves, since they hunt in packs. However, wolves are only 8th rank prey, and with several 7th rank adventurers in the party, it should not be a major problem. He advises Akihiro to avoid going too deep into the forest and stay cautious. After finishing breakfast, Akihiro prepares himself and heads out. Before leaving, Lizacia anxiously asks Akihiro to be careful and gives him a packed lunch. When he casually calls her Liz, she is surprised and flustered, realizing it is the first time he has used that nickname. Akihiro laughs and suggests she stop calling him Akihiro-san and simply call him Chiro. Lizacia becomes flustered trying to say his nickname, but finally calls out Hiro and wishes him a safe trip. Seeing her effort lifts Akihiro's mood, and as he heads out, he realizes that the strange excitement has pushed away his anxiety. Although Akihiro is still afraid, he chooses to face the mission. Encouraged, he decides to stay in this world for now and challenge the giant slime. As he heads out with renewed determination, a notification appears. Bravery 1 has been added and integrated into his acquisition skill. Shortly after, Deed greets him, ready to begin the mission. With everyone gathered, the party prepares to depart. A guild member named Hardis introduces himself as the auditor who will accompany them on the mission. After brief greetings, the group sets out together toward their destination, the northern forest, where the giant slime awaits. As the group advances into the northern forest, Deed warns that the number of monsters increases from that point onward. He tells everyone to stay alert as they continue moving deeper into the forest. While moving through the forest, Akihiro asks if the giant slime is still in the same place. Hardis explains that once slimes grow large, they rarely move. To navigate, Akihiro checks a map and compass, surprising the others. Deed finds the item impressive since he usually determines direction using the sun and time instead. As the party moves through the forest, 2 goblins suddenly jump out to attack. Akihiro alerts the group, but Deed reacts instantly, drawing his sword and cutting down the goblins in a single swift strike before they can reach them. Akihiro is impressed by Deed's speed, recognizing the skill expected of a 7th rank adventurer. After quickly collecting the subjugation proof, the group continues deeper into the forest. As they move forward, Deed notices the mana density growing stronger, and the forest around them becomes darker and more ominous. The group suddenly finds themselves surrounded by a pack of wolves. Hardis quickly realizes they are encircled and warns the others. Deed orders everyone to hold the wolves back, while Wattis prepares a spell. As the wolves close in, the party forms a defensive line to protect the mage, while she begins chanting. Wattis finishes her chant and releases her magic. Instantly, the wolves collapse one after another, shocking Akihiro with how quickly the threat is eliminated. When asked about the spell, Wattis calmly explains that she cannot cast large-scale magic. Instead, she compressed small fireballs and sent them directly into the wolves' mouths, burning their lungs from the inside. Wattis calmly defeats the wolves without damaging their bodies, leaving the materials intact. Despite her gentle appearance, her methods are extremely ruthless. Deed explains that wolf pelts can be sold, so they will collect them on the way back. After regrouping, the party continues deeper into the forest, expecting about 2 more hours before reaching their destination. Hardis reassures Akihiro, saying it is normal to be nervous since the mission is above his rank, and he has only recently become an adventurer. He thanks him for agreeing to help despite that. Akihiro worries he may not be very useful, but Hardis remains supportive. Meanwhile, Akihiro quietly notes how ordinary Hardis seems so ordinary that his face is strangely hard to remember. Hardis notes that balanced parties like theirs are rare, making this group reliable both offensively and defensively. Deed adds that the 3 of them have been childhood friends in the village. Hearing this, Akihiro is shocked and jokingly jealous, thinking Deed must have had incredible luck to grow up with 2 beautiful childhood friends. Hardis swiftly cuts down another monster, displaying efficient swordsmanship that impresses Akihiro. Realizing Hardis is a guild officer, Akihiro admires his skill. With the path clear, Hardis tells the group to push forward toward their objective. Determined, Akihiro resolves to help however he can, since they have already come this far. The group finally reaches the target and discovers the huge slime. Its massive size shocks Akihiro, far larger than he expected. Hardis confirms that the location matches the report, meaning this enormous slime is their objective. The party confronts the enormous slime, which stands about 3 meters tall. Akihiro is stunned by its size. Hardis explains that the slime's weak point is the core inside its body. If they destroy the core or remove enough of the surrounding slime mass, the monster's activity will stop. Akihiro asks Deed to throw a stone at the slime to observe how it reacts. When the stone hits, the slime slowly shifts toward the impact point. After a moment, it sluggishly returns to its original position, confirming that the monster reacts to disturbances but moves very slowly. Hardis explains they only need the slime's core, so the outer jelly isn't necessary. However, they should avoid destroying more than needed, since some materials can still be recovered. Akihiro decides to try blowing apart the outer slime, first using moderate power, though he worries such a large target might exhaust him. The others encourage him as he prepares to attempt it. Akihiro steps forward to attack the huge slime, but the pressure makes his hands tremble. Feeling embarrassed by his nervousness, he tries to steady himself. Realizing everyone has protected him so he could act at this moment, he gathers his resolve and decides he must go through with it. Akihiro carefully visualizes his spell. He compresses a sphere of wind to about 10 centimeters in front of his finger, adds rotational force, and shapes it into a narrow cone of pressure. Calculating the output, he launches the attack at roughly 700 kilometers per hour, about half the speed of a handgun bullet. Akihiro carefully aims slightly to the right of the slime's core and releases the spell. The compressed wind projectile shoots forward at high speed. It pierces into the slime's body and explodes inside, violently blasting the jelly-like mass apart. Akihiro's attack blasts apart the slime's outer body, scattering the jelly across the ground. However, the core remains intact. Even so, the slime stops moving, meaning its activity has ceased. The others praise Akihiro for defeating it on his first try. After confirming the slime is defeated, Akihiro celebrates briefly, relieved that his attack worked. However, the strain from using the spell hits him immediately, causing intense nausea and a terrible headache. As he struggles, Wada supports him while thanking him for going that far for the team. Recovering from the recoil of his spell, Akihiro wonders if the severe nausea was caused by the compression and speed of the wind attack. He decides he will need to properly test and adjust it next time. Meanwhile, the others gather around the remains of the huge slime and its core. Hardis remarks that monsters of this size are rare, while Deed notes that the effort was worth it. Hardis promises to consider Akihiro for future requests and reminds him to keep his promise to help again. After the battle, the group checks the slime's core while asking if Akihiro is feeling better. He apologizes for worrying them and admits the backlash from the spell was the worst he has experienced. The others, however, are impressed. They did not expect him to possess such power, and they praise him for defeating such a large monster in a single attack. While the group praises Akihiro, he modestly says he only learned magic recently and understands his limits. Suddenly, Eri senses something approaching. Hardis reacts in alarm, and she warns the others that something huge is moving toward them, though she cannot yet identify what it is. The group senses a powerful presence rapidly approaching. Hardis immediately orders everyone to withdraw. Realizing they may have underestimated the danger, Deed quickly organizes the retreat. Hardis takes the lead while the others run, with Deed and Eri staying behind to guard the rear. Wada secures the slime's core as they escape. As the group retreats, a deep howl echoes through the forest. Hardis realizes the sound is far too deep to belong to a normal wolf. Eri warns that whatever is coming is closing in quickly, urging everyone to move faster before it reaches them. As they run through the forest, the group realizes the threat behind them is not a single monster, but a large pack of wolves, more than 10, and clearly stronger than normal ones. Struggling to keep up, Akihiro pants heavily and realizes he is slowing everyone down, feeling frustrated that he is holding the party back. Realizing he cannot outrun the wolves, Akihiro suggests climbing a tree and using magic to hold them off. He explains that if he can rest between casts, he might be able to keep attacking continuously. Deed worries about whether it is truly safe since they do not know how many wolves there are, but Eri believes Akihiro's magic could work. With no time to hesitate, Hardis agrees to the plan, noting that wolves normally have limits to their pack size. The group quickly climbs a large tree to escape the approaching wolves. Catching his breath, Akihiro complains about his weak stamina and vows to start jogging and training more when he gets back. Just as they settle into position, Eri warns that the wolves have already arrived beneath them. Moments later, the wolves gather beneath the tree. Their shadows spread across the ground as the pack surrounds the area. The group realizes these are not normal wolves. Each one is enormous and far more intimidating than expected, confirming the danger chasing them. From the tree, the group sees the wolves clearly and is shocked by their size, each one about 3 times larger than a normal wolf. Using a recognition skill, Akihiro realizes these wolves have adapted to areas with dense magical energy and turned into monsters. Their hides are much tougher than those of ordinary wolves. From the tree, the group realizes the situation is worse than expected. The wolves continue howling to call more of their pack, and there are already nearly 20 gathered below. Seeing the danger growing, Hardis turns to Wattis. She calmly prepares her magic and begins the spell. Wattis jumps from the tree and attacks the wolves with fire magic. However, the monsters only suffer minor burn damage and keep fighting. Hardis realizes the problem. Unlike before, she cannot force the wolves to open their mouths, so she cannot burn their lungs from the inside. Without Deed and Eri restraining them, her magic is far less effective. Seeing that the wolves cannot climb the tree, Akihiro decides to attack from above. He prepares another wind spell, compressing a small ball of air in front of his finger and shaping the pressure. Calculating the speed so the wolves cannot dodge, he aims at one of them and releases the attack. Akihiro's wind shot hits perfectly, blowing apart one of the wolves. Relieved, he realizes his attack worked. But Hardis quickly notices a bigger problem. The pack is still growing. More wolves gather beneath the tree, surrounding them as their numbers continue to increase. Hardis warns that if they do not reduce the wolves' numbers quickly, even more packs may be drawn by the noise. He asks Akihiro how quickly he can repeat the powerful spell he used earlier. Realizing they cannot defeat the wolves one at a time, Akihiro understands he must try something new. To strike many at once, he concludes he will need to attempt a multi-cast spell. As Akihiro prepares to attempt a multi-cast spell, he remembers a warning from his instructor. Excessive spellcasting can cause serious harm or dangerous side effects. Despite the risk, he realizes there is no other choice. Accepting the danger, he decides to rely on a desperate prayer and push forward with the spell. As Akihiro prepares to push his magic further, a voice suddenly connects with him. It introduces itself as Electa, the entity that governs spellcasting. When Akihiro urgently asks about the dangers of excessive magic use, Electa explains that the nausea he felt earlier is only the first symptom, his brain becoming intoxicated from magical strain. If he continues to overuse magic beyond that point, it could lead to severe damage, including a cerebral hemorrhage. Electa tells Akihiro that their visitor is struggling, so she will temporarily assist in controlling the spell. However, she warns that once it is over, he will likely lose consciousness for several days. Grateful, Akihiro accepts and prepares to attempt the multicasting technique. Looking below, he notices nearly 30 wolves gathered, realizing they are facing the entire pack. Akihiro tells Hardis he will handle the situation, but warns that he will likely collapse afterward. Determined, he prepares to give everything he has. Using Electa's assistance, he visualizes a targeting reticle on each wolf and begins locking onto them one by one. Counting carefully, he identifies 34 wolves in total and prepares to strike them all at once. With Electa's help stabilizing the spell, Akihiro prepares a massive multicast attack. He creates 34 compressed wind shots, each shaped into a small cone of pressure and set to fire at about 150 kilometers per hour. Each projectile is individually locked onto a different wolf. Thinking of the people waiting for him to return home, he gathers his resolve and releases the spell, executing all the attacks at once. Akihiro unleashes the multicast spell, firing dozens of compressed wind shots at once. Each projectile strikes a different wolf, exploding through their bodies simultaneously and wiping out the entire pack in an instant. From the tree, the others watch in shock as the wolves collapse across the forest floor. None of them move anymore. Exhausted but relieved, Akihiro realizes the threat is gone and believes he can finally return home. After defeating the wolves, Akihiro's strength finally gives out. His consciousness begins fading as the strain from the massive spell catches up to him. As he loses awareness, he apologizes to Hardis, while the mysterious figure who governs magic calmly watches from afar. Akihiro regains awareness in a strange space and meets a mysterious man named Electa. The man explains that it is their first meeting and welcomes him as a visitor. Akihiro thanks him for helping earlier and becomes confused about where he is. Electa calmly explains that the place is related to the system that governs spellcasting. Akihiro also notices Electa's unusual clothing, which resembles formal attire from his own world, suggesting the mysterious figure possesses deep knowledge about him and his origins. Electa explains that he created this space to talk with Akihiro while his body remains unconscious. Since Akihiro will be in a coma for some time after the intense spellcasting, they have time for a conversation. Akihiro is confused about what someone like him could discuss with a god. Electa reveals that beings who manage magic observe different worlds, and Earth is one of the most popular. According to him, Earth attracts attention because of its fascinating perspectives and ideas. Electa explains that every world is created with a specific theme. Earth's theme is the development of civilization, while this world's theme is allowing people to live as happily as possible. He reveals that the planet is essentially a copy of Earth, including its genetics, which is why the inhabitants resemble humans. However, the gods adjusted the system to reduce wars among the same species. The result is a world inspired by Earth, but designed to pursue happiness rather than conflict. Electa continues, explaining that many beings who manage different worlds are fascinated by Earth, especially Japanese culture such as games, anime, and manga. Even he enjoys things from Earth, and admits he particularly likes potato chips, often copying new flavors to try them. Akihiro realizes that otaku culture is popular even beyond Earth. Electa then asks him to help introduce potato chips to this world, since the locals believe potatoes are poisonous after getting sick from the leaves. Akihiro reluctantly agrees to help spread them when he returns. Electa tells Akihiro that it is time for him to return. Although time flows differently in that space, Akihiro will soon wake up in the real world. After thanking Electa for the help and conversation, Akihiro says goodbye. As his consciousness fades from the strange realm, he wonders what will happen when he wakes up, and whether he is safely returned to his companions. The young man slowly wakes up in a quiet room, confused by the bright light entering his eyes. As he regains consciousness, he looks around and realizes he is back in his own room. He begins to wonder whether everyone else is safe, and if he truly managed to return alive. The memories of the strange experience remain vivid in his mind. As he gathers his thoughts, he recalls clearly meeting a mysterious being who claimed to be a god, confirming that everything that happened was real, and not just a dream. The man notices a young girl sleeping beside his bed, exhausted after caring for him the entire time. Realizing she has been watching over him while he was unconscious, he gently tries to wake her. Still half asleep, she slowly stirs, showing that she had remained by his side the whole time, while nursing him back to health. The man tries to wake the girl, but she remains fast asleep and gently slides off the bed onto the floor, still resting peacefully. Seeing how deeply she is sleeping, he realizes she must be completely exhausted. After getting up, he checks his condition and notices that his body feels surprisingly fine, aside from a few small scratches likely caused while he was being carried. The girl finally wakes up and immediately notices that Hiro is conscious. Overwhelmed with relief, she rushes forward and hugs him tightly, grateful that he has recovered. As she calms down, she greets him warmly and realizes that she had been the one taking care of him while he was unconscious. Liz clings tightly to Hiro, overwhelmed with worry after finally seeing him awake. Her emotions spiral into panic, squeezing him so hard that he struggles to breathe. Hiro quickly reassures her and calmly helps her slow down, guiding her to breathe and relax. Gradually, Liz begins to calm down as the tension fades. Liz explains that Hiro was brought back by the others after collapsing from excessive mana use. The Apothecary Guild confirmed that he had simply overexerted himself and would wake up once he had rested. Relieved, Hiro apologizes and expresses gratitude for being brought back safely and for Liz staying by his side. Liz admits how worried she had been during the 3 days he remained unconscious, afraid he might never wake up. Hiro smiles and tells Liz that he has returned. He explains that his strong desire to come back to this home guided him while he was unconscious. Liz warmly welcomes him back, happy to see him safe again, while Hiro admits that he may have pushed himself a little too hard. After waking up, Hiro is given a light soup prepared to be gentle on his stomach. Liz explains that while he was unconscious, members of the Apothecary Guild visited and provided liquid nourishment to keep him healthy. Relieved that he is recovering well, Hiro begins eating and quietly thinks about asking later how much the treatment cost. Meanwhile, another man prepares to leave for hunting and tells Akihiro to rest and take it easy for the day. Liz insists that she wants to stay by Hiro's side. Hiro says his body feels fine and that he only plans to walk around the village, so there is no need to worry. Liz immediately tells him not to overdo it and offers to go with him when he reports to the guild. He reassures her and decides he will simply greet the people there and return quickly. Although Liz had been worried about him, Hiro also feels concerned about what happened after he collapsed and wants to hear the full details. On the way to the guild, Hiro decides to check his current skills. A status window appears, listing several abilities such as vigilance, prayer, spell control, concealment, bravery, and spear technique. Among them, he notices a new skill related to water attribute control. Thinking back, he realizes it may have been obtained during the slime incident, but since he was about to collapse at the time, the report might not have been transmitted correctly. When Hiro arrives in town, one of the villagers thanks him sincerely for helping them the other day and asks if he is feeling better. Hiro modestly replies that he was the one who caused trouble on the way back. The villager quickly reassures him, explaining that nothing dangerous happened and that he used his vigilance skill to stay alert and run back safely. The conversation continues in a friendly atmosphere as the others happily greet Akihiro. At the guild, Hiro is warmly greeted by the adventurers who helped him before. They thank him for his efforts and are relieved to see that he has recovered. Hiro expresses his gratitude for carrying him back after he collapsed, knowing it must have been difficult. The others explain that everyone took turns transporting him. Arie also quietly thanks him for helping her despite the trouble he was in. At the guild, the staff explains the results of their last mission. The wolf-like creature they defeated was identified as a new species called a dire wolf. Because of this discovery, the guild granted an unprecedented reward. The total reward for the party is 1 million wall, divided equally among the 4 members. Each person receives 250,000 wall, an amount considered significant, close to a local farmer's yearly income. The guild staff hands Hiro a pouch of money, explaining that it includes the achievement fee and reward, totaling 390,000 wall. The party members laugh, noting that defeating the dire wolf would normally be impossible for adventurers of their rank, but the mission was treated as a higher-rank subjugation. The staff then reveals that a special order came from the Viscount to reward Hiro for discovering something valuable that could benefit the domain in the future. As a special exception, the guild also added the achievement to his completed records. The guild announces that Akihiro has been promoted to Adventurer rank 9. The others congratulate him, saying he will now easily find companions. The staff explains that the usual rank 9 exam is Goblin Subjugation, but Akihiro is exempt because he already achieved the necessary accomplishments. From rank 7 onward, however, adventurers are required to form parties of at least 3 members, meaning he will soon need companions. Akihiro feels uneasy about the idea of finding companions, remembering that in his previous life he struggled to make friends. The thought of forming an adventurer party feels like a difficult challenge for him. The guild staff explains that parties are often formed with people from the same hometown or through introductions arranged by the guild. Because of Akihiro's recent achievements, many adventurers would likely want to join him. Relieved to hear this, Akihiro decides he can relax for now. Akihiro notices that Wattis is not with them and asks about it. The others explain that they will be staying in the village for a while. During the conversation, Akihiro notices the bracelet Arie is wearing. She shyly explains that it is part of her engagement. Akihiro compliments it, making her blush with happiness. Meanwhile, the others mention that they are planning to go out together as a group for some time. Arie explains that, in her country, when a couple becomes engaged, the man gives the woman a bracelet. After marriage, the two exchange rings. Akihiro congratulates her, but admits he is not very familiar with the local customs. Thinking about it briefly, he quickly shifts his focus back to something more important, finding companions for his adventurer party. He then apologizes for holding them up and lets them continue with their plans. Akihiro recalls what he learned about adventurer ranks. From 8th rank onward, adventurers can usually make a living, while life becomes more stable at 7th rank. However, the difficulty of the quests also increases. After checking some 8th rank requests, such as culling wolf packs or hunting bears, he realizes they are not tasks he could easily handle alone. Rank 9 is mainly for preparation, meaning he must figure out his abilities and find companions before advancing further. Akihiro reflects that forming a party requires trust and strong relationships, something that normally takes a long time to build. In a job where lives are constantly at risk, finding companions he can truly rely on is even harder. Unlike a game where failure can be brushed off, this world is real. Remembering his past experience as a company leader, he realizes he must quickly gather trustworthy people if he wants to survive and live in this world. Akihiro returns home and thanks the woman who welcomes him, offering him lunch. She hands him a pouch of money, explaining that it covers the doctor's visit from the apothecary guild, as well as the rent, and tells him to accept it since he had been taking care of her. After resting in his room, Akihiro decides to spend the day doing some indoor training, even though he had been told to take it easy. Meanwhile, the woman notices that his habit of pushing himself resembles Liz's behavior. Akihiro accidentally falls asleep and wakes up later, noticing Liz sleeping beside him again. Realizing he must have been carried back home without noticing, he is surprised to find the situation almost identical to the morning before. When he gently calls her name, Liz slowly wakes up, while Akihiro awkwardly wonders if he is experiencing a strange sense of déjà vu. Liz suddenly declares that she wants to become an adventurer as well. Hiro is completely caught off guard by her unexpected announcement and can only react in shock. Liz insists that she wants to become an adventurer. She explains that she never wants to experience the fear of almost losing Hiro again. Determined, she asks to stay by his side, so she can protect and support him from now on. Hiro thanks Liz for her feelings and admits that he trusts her. However, he tells her that she cannot become an adventurer right now. He reminds her that she is still an apprentice hunter and the precious only daughter of the homeowner. Because of that, such a decision cannot be made lightly. Hiro tells her that the matter should first be properly discussed with Wadis and Thesia. Liz firmly insists that she will become an adventurer and join Hiro's party. Although she plans to talk to her father, she declares that the final decision is hers. Hiro explains that being a hunter is already a respectable profession and reminds her that she still has much to learn under Wadis. He also admits that he does not want to take her to places that are too dangerous. Liz then asks if Hiro himself does not want her to become an adventurer. Hiro answers honestly that, just as she worries about him, he is worried about her as well. Liz insists that her decision to become an adventurer is not something she chose lightly. She explains that she thought about it carefully beforehand. Although she is happy that Hiro worries about her, she also wants him to recognize that she has her own skills and is not fragile. She believes she can be useful. After hearing her determination, Hiro sighs and agrees that, if she feels that strongly, they should discuss the matter properly with Wadis and Thesia first. Liz brings up the idea of becoming an adventurer while speaking with her father. She explains that it was her own decision and that Hiro only suggested discussing it properly with her parents. Her father listens quietly and then asks Akihiro if he was the one who invited her to join him. Akihiro is caught off guard by the direct question. Liz explains that after what happened recently, she does not want to simply stay at home waiting for Hiro to return. She says she has thought about it seriously and decided that she wants to go on subjugation missions together with him. Her father listens carefully and then turns to Akihiro, asking what he thinks about the idea. Caught off guard, Akihiro hesitates, unsure how to respond. Liz's father admits he is worried about sending her into dangerous places and would prefer that she continue working as a hunter instead. Akihiro explains that he was also surprised when Liz said she wanted to become an adventurer. He understands that quests involve life and death risks and that injuries are unavoidable. At first, he tried to persuade her to reconsider, but he realized that once Liz makes up her mind, she rarely changes it. Hearing this, her father acknowledges that Akihiro understands her well. Akihiro states that if Liz joins his party, it will be as a fellow adventurer. He acknowledges that trust between party members is essential. He promises that if danger arises, he will protect her without fail and asks her father to accept their decision. Hearing this, Liz reacts with excitement at his words. Liz's father finally agrees, acknowledging that once she makes a decision, she will not easily change it. Trusting Akihiro, he asks him to take care of Liz. Overjoyed, Liz thanks her father and promises to do her best as an adventurer. Her father reminds her not to forget what she learned as a hunter apprentice and to continue improving herself. Liz confidently agrees. Liz's father accepts the decision, noting that the harvest was good and allowing her to move forward. Akihiro feels relieved that he approved. Excited, Liz announces that she will go to the guild the next day to register as an adventurer. With that, Liz officially becomes a member of the party. Although Akihiro is happy that Liz joined the party, it creates a new problem deciding her role. Considering her strong physical ability, placing her on the front line seems possible. However, Liz mainly uses a bow specialized for hunting small animals, leaving her ineffective against large monsters. Akihiro struggles to decide where she should be positioned in the party. Akihiro considers Liz's abilities and realizes that her Herculean strength mainly enhances her muscles. With such power, she might be better suited for the front line rather than staying in the back. He briefly worries about whether her bones could withstand that strength, but recalls that the skill's magic also reinforces the body, protecting it from the impact of her own power. While he is lost in thought about her role, Liz notices and asks whether he would prefer her to fight on the front line or remain in the back line. Akihiro asks Liz if she would be willing to fight on the front line using a shield and a blunt weapon. Liz happily agrees, saying she will do her best if that role suits the party. When he asks if she can use an axe, Liz answers that she is not particular about weapons and that the one she carries was originally given to her for self-defense. With that decided, Akihiro concludes that she will take the frontline position. However, another issue quickly comes to mind. They still need money. Akihiro realizes that preparing Liz for the front line will be expensive. Heavy armor costs a fortune, and he has not even gathered proper equipment for himself yet. Blunt weapons would at least be more cost-effective than bows, but the road ahead still looks difficult. He also wonders whether Liz could even defeat a goblin yet. For now, he decides they should hunt goblins to build experience and earn money, and afterward visit the guild to check out some weapons. Liz happily agrees but mentions that there is someone she wants him to meet later. Liz explains that the person she wants Hiro to meet is also an adventurer, likely around rank 9. Since they are looking for party members, she thought it would be a perfect opportunity. She reveals that the girl is her childhood friend, the same age as her, 15. Although she comes from a farming family, she has been working as an adventurer since she was about 10 to support herself. Hearing this, Hiro feels somewhat reassured, thinking that if she is Liz's childhood friend, her character is probably trustworthy. Liz explains that she already spoke with her friend the day before and arranged to meet her at the guild. The girl agreed and should be waiting there. Hiro asks to be introduced and worries about keeping her waiting, but Liz casually says there is no need to rush. As they head to the guild, Hiro reflects on the relaxed pace of rural life compared to the strict timing he was used to in his previous corporate life. As they walk, Liz talks about her childhood friend. She explains that the girl used to punch boys who teased her when they were kids. Although she can be sharp-tongued, Liz insists that she is actually very kind at heart. Hiro learns that the friend is also a girl, which makes him slightly uneasy since adventuring is dangerous work. Finally, Liz calls out her friend's name, Fia. Liz introduces Akihiro to her childhood friend at the guild. The girl cheerfully greets them and recognizes Liz immediately. She introduces herself as Fia, an adventurer of rank 9, and warmly greets Akihiro as they meet for the first time. Fia casually explains that she comes from a family of farmers, so her rough way of speaking might sound unusual. Akihiro tells her not to worry about it. Observing her energetic and straightforward attitude, he realizes she has a tomboyish personality. Fia then jokingly tells him to relax and speak freely, teasing that he is Liz's fiancé, while Liz quickly reacts in embarrassment. Fia brings up Akihiro's recent feat, saying she heard he defeated a group of high-rank prey all at once, and even took down the so-called dire wolf by himself. Impressed, she calls his strength amazing. Akihiro quickly denies taking all the credit, and explains that it was not just his power. He admits that he collapsed afterward, making it clear that the victory was not his alone. Fia suddenly jokes that she would not mind becoming Akihiro's second wife, saying it casually. Liz immediately explodes in anger and shouts her name, clearly furious at the teasing remark. Seeing the tension between the two girls, it becomes clear that this may not only be a difficult road ahead for Akihiro, but also the beginning of a turbulent new chapter. Fia continues teasing, praising Akihiro by saying that defeating a rank 6 prey alone makes him an excellent candidate. Liz immediately objects, angrily insisting that Hiro is not a candidate for anything. The two begin arguing while Akihiro watches awkwardly. As the situation becomes increasingly chaotic, Akihiro can only think about how complicated things have suddenly become. Akihiro quickly interrupts the teasing and explains that, in the laws of his original country, a person can only have one wife. Fia reacts with surprise, asking if that is really true. Akihiro then clarifies that he has not even decided on an engagement with Liz yet, and adds that he has no intention of practicing polygamy. Liz quietly smiles beside him. Liz proudly announces that she has officially registered as an adventurer and shows her guild card, which lists her as rank 10. Fia congratulates her, surprised that Liz decided to become an adventurer, and asks what will happen to her work as a hunter. Liz explains that her brother will take care of things for now, so there is no problem. Liz confirms that she plans to join the party. She casually mentions that once she is married, she will leave her family home anyway, so there will be no problem. Fia teasingly calls her the same crybaby Liz she remembers, and the two laugh together. Happy to be reunited, they both express excitement about working together again. Meanwhile, Akihiro quietly wonders if his opinion matters in all of this. Akihiro decides to visit a weapon shop, and both Liz and Fia agree to come along. When asked what they plan to do next, they say they have no other plans, so they head there together. Inside the shop, Akihiro asks Liz which blunt weapon she prefers. After looking around, Liz quickly chooses a large hammer, saying it looks cool. Akihiro considers the choice while examining it. While browsing the shop, Akihiro decides he should also buy a proper machete for himself. After testing a few blades, he selects one and asks the shopkeeper to prepare the purchase. Meanwhile, Liz holds the large hammer and imagines her full set of equipment. Fia excitedly praises her, saying she truly looks like an adventurer and that the weapon suits her perfectly. Akihiro decides to buy the items, while Liz insists on paying for her own equipment. Fia excitedly suggests buying something for herself as well, but Liz quickly stops her. Akihiro decides to pay for Liz's equipment, telling her to consider it a small thank you gift. Although she hesitates at first, she eventually accepts and thanks him sincerely. Even though he spent quite a bit, Akihiro feels reassured since the recent reward gave him more money, and he considers the purchase a necessary expense. Fia asks Akihiro if she can see his magic in action. Instead of demonstrating it in the middle of town, they decide to head to a quiet spot at the edge of the village. She leads them to a small clearing in the woods where she usually practices. Since no one comes there, it is a good place to train freely. Fia then asks if she can try shooting at the wooden target, and Akihiro allows her to go ahead. Liz notes that this is where Fia normally practices. Akihiro begins demonstrating his magic. He focuses on the wind attribute and shapes the air into a small rotating form in front of his finger, carefully controlling its size and position. After stabilizing the spell, he adds rotational force and launches it forward at high speed. The compressed wind shoots ahead like a projectile and strikes the target with a sharp impact. He then calmly explains that this is basically how his magic works. Fia watches Akihiro's demonstration and asks if he is a complete beginner. Liz looks surprised by the blunt question. Akihiro calmly admits that he is indeed a novice and asks why she thinks so. Fia explains that the incantation he used is something taught at the very beginning in basic magic classes, meant to help beginners understand spell structure and feel the feedback of excessive magical output. Fia explains that the spell Akihiro used is normally taught very early in magic education. She says that once students reach the intermediate course, they begin using something called a simulator to practice their magic safely. Akihiro recalls that a mage he once worked with had briefly mentioned this concept before. Although he never fully learned it, the idea now makes more sense to him. Fia then describes how the process works. A mage runs a simulation inside their own mind before casting a spell. If the imagined result appears stable and correct, they can proceed with the execution. The caster must strongly visualize the outcome and confirm that the structure of the spell will function properly. Listening carefully, Akihiro summarizes the concept in his own words. It is essentially like launching an application inside his mind to test the spell first. Deciding to try it immediately, he prepares to run this mental simulator before casting again. Akihiro focuses and tries to imagine the chant he used earlier. As he concentrates, images suddenly appear in his mind. He sees himself from above, as if looking at a screen, with the spell forming in front of him. Realizing what is happening, Akihiro understands that the simulator is activating in his mind, projecting the spell's process like a game interface. Akihiro continues observing the simulator inside his mind. The experience overwhelms him at first, making him feel slightly nauseous as if he were watching extremely vivid three-dimensional imagery. Despite the discomfort, he notices that he can move freely within the simulation. The projected image of himself responds to his actions, walking when he walks, and shifting perspective as he approaches or moves away from the magical target. Gradually, he realizes the simulator perfectly mirrors his movements, allowing him to analyze the spell's position and behavior before actually casting it. Akihiro focuses on the simulator and decides to execute the spell. In his mind, a confirmation interface appears, showing an OK sign and an Enter command. When he proceeds, the spell activates exactly as it did in the simulation, confirming that the system works. Encouraged, he attempts to test another mental image he once used when dealing with a slime. However, the simulator immediately displays a warning, indicating that the imagined result could be dangerous. Curious, he continues the test, using the mental image of a dire wolf. This time, the simulator rejects the attempt entirely, displaying an error message, leaving Akihiro surprised by the system's strict response. Akihiro returns from the simulation, looking slightly dizzy. Liz and Fia notice his condition and check on him. He explains that he is fine but shocked, since it was the first time he experienced something like that. Realizing how the system works, he understands why a mage he met before was able to judge the danger of his actions earlier. Thinking back, he recognizes that others had been grateful because he had unknowingly put himself in danger. Although relieved, the after effects of the mental simulation still make him feel sick. Akihiro admits that he is still a complete beginner and that it will likely take time before he becomes used to using the simulator. Fia asks Akihiro where he learned magic. Liz explains that he was taught by Bastia from the village general store. Fia is shocked by the answer. She reveals that Bastia never even finished basic magical education and dropped out of school very early. Realizing this, Akihiro finally understands why his magical knowledge seems so unusual. Akihiro wonders if casting magic simply by imagining it might be dangerous. Fia praises him, saying it is impressive that he understood the concept immediately after being taught only briefly. Liz happily asks if her explanation helped, and Akihiro thanks her. As he reflects on it, Akihiro realizes that most people imagine spells like simple drawings, but his experiences in another world allow him to picture things in far greater detail. Because of this, the way he visualizes magic is far more realistic than others. Akihiro reflects that his ability to visualize magic clearly comes from his experience with games in his previous world. While people in this world imagine spells in simple two-dimensional forms, he naturally pictures them in detailed three-dimensional images. Because of this, the spells he imagines appear far more realistic and precise. He also realizes that most people here lack experiences like advanced games, which makes their imagination less concrete. Although information about dangerous magical feedback is unclear and depends on the user's ability, Akihiro begins to suspect that using mental simulations to predict and create spells could become an extremely powerful skill. With their equipment ready, the group decides to test their strength by hunting goblins. Fia enthusiastically agrees, eager to join the fight, while Akihiro reminds them that Liz also needs to gain experience and level up. As they head toward the forest, Akihiro keeps thinking about the magic he used earlier and decides to be more careful with it for now. When they arrive, Fia notices the area and asks if this is Akihiro's usual hunting ground. Liz casually adds that she often comes here to gather vase grass, revealing she is already familiar with the place. Akihiro spots two goblins approaching through the forest. Seeing the opportunity, he decides it is the perfect moment for an ambush. He quickly gives instructions. Liz will attack the goblin on the right and strike it with her hammer, focusing her force on the body. Fia is told to stay alert and watch the surroundings in case other monsters appear. Akihiro plans to support Liz if anything goes wrong. As the goblins move closer, he signals for Liz to prepare and tells her to act the moment he gives the command. Akihiro prepares the attack while watching the goblins through the simulator in his mind. The interface shows the targets clearly, but the intense visualization still makes him slightly dizzy. Despite the discomfort, he analyzes the spell and adjusts the compression rate to make it more stable. After confirming the result in the simulation, the system displays a confirmation signal. Satisfied with the adjustments, Akihiro executes the spell, releasing the attack exactly as he planned. As Akihiro's attack lands, Liz rushes forward without hesitation. Using the opening he created, she leaps into the air and swings her hammer with all her strength. The heavy blow crashes into the goblin, sending it flying as the impact bursts through its body. Liz lands smoothly after the strike, completing the ambush in a single, decisive attack. Liz's hammer strike lands perfectly, crushing the goblin with a precise and powerful blow. The monster collapses instantly, its body unable to withstand the impact. Akihiro watches in surprise as the attack ends the fight in a single clean strike. After the goblin falls, Akihiro notes how skilled Liz is in battle. They proceed to collect the proof of the kill by cutting off the monster's nose. Watching her calmly handle the aftermath, Akihiro realizes she shows no hesitation when defeating enemies. Having seen life and death before, she carries herself differently from ordinary people. When asked how she performed so well on her first hunt, Liz explains that she learned by observing her father's movements while he hunted. As the day continues, Akihiro realizes that Liz may be more suited to becoming an adventurer than he first thought. Her natural ability in battle surprises him. Encouraged by their success, the group continues hunting monsters. Later, they return to the guild and calculate their earnings. From defeating 20 goblins, they receive a reward, and Liz also sells bundles of vase-grass she gathered. After adding everything together, the total reaches 640,000 wall. Akihiro proposes dividing the achievement reward into 4 shares, with each person receiving a portion while 1 share goes to the party fund. When the reward is divided, each member receives 160,000 wall. Fia is amazed, explaining that when she hunts alone, she can only defeat about 3 goblins a day, making the amount they earned in a single day feel unbelievable. She also insists that the plan worked because Akihiro handled things well, and even declares him the leader of the party. Liz objects to the sudden decision, while Fia cheerfully ignores the complaint. Despite the teasing, Fia admits that being in a party feels much better. When she worked alone, she often felt lonely and afraid. Full of energy, she excitedly runs off and says goodbye for the day, leaving Akihiro and Liz watching her go. After parting with Fia, Akihiro tells Liz he plans to stop by the church. He explains that he wants to pray for the party's safety and also ask God about something that has been on his mind. Liz understands and decides to head home first to help with dinner. They say goodbye and go their separate ways. As Akihiro approaches the church, he reflects that the matter he wants to think about today concerns magic. Akihiro enters the quiet church and notices a nun reading inside. He steps forward and kneels before the altar. Closing his eyes, he prays sincerely, asking God to answer the question weighing on his mind. As he wonders whether someone will come to respond, he waits in silence inside the still chapel. While Akihiro prays in the church, a mysterious woman suddenly appears before him. She calmly remarks that a simple prayer would have been enough instead of him coming personally. At the same time, Akihiro senses that something unusual has happened within the system connected to him. The woman introduces herself as Deshia, the one who governs healing. Akihiro politely introduces himself and explains his concern. He admits that the power he can use in this world feels frightening. He worries that the knowledge he possesses could greatly impact the world if used carelessly. Deshia tells Akihiro that power itself is not dangerous. It depends on the person who wields it. Even something as simple as a kitchen knife can become deadly in the wrong hands. She compares his situation to being the only person in the world carrying a powerful weapon, explaining that his fears are understandable but unnecessary. She trusts him to handle his power responsibly. Deshia also explains that the rules governing magic are continually updated, and if his abilities ever become too influential, they will simply revise those rules. She then mentions that she has received a message from Electoa. Deshia decides to grant Akihiro a new skill and gently places her hand on his head. A warm sensation spreads through him as the blessing takes effect. She then demonstrates the ability by temporarily suspending his sense of pain and tells him to test it. Following her instructions, Akihiro cuts into his arm, surprised to realize that he truly feels nothing. Akihiro cuts deeply into his arm while the pain is suppressed. Blood drips from the wound, and Deshia calmly notes that the cut is deep enough to expose the bone. Although he feels no pain, the sight terrifies him. Deshia reassures him and instructs him to imagine the wound healing while using the simulator in his mind. She explains that by strongly visualizing the process, he can recreate healing through his magic. Akihiro focuses and visualizes the wound healing. In his mind, the skin gradually closes as the simulator processes the image. After confirming the result, he executes the spell. The injury on his arm disappears, leaving it completely healed. Realizing it worked, Akihiro celebrates his success. Akihiro executes the healing spell, and the wound on his arm closes instantly. He is amazed at how quickly it recovers. Deshia explains that this is what is known as divine magic. Normally, healing external injuries is possible, but healing inside the body is far more difficult because people struggle to imagine it clearly. However, she notes that Akihiro's visualizations are extremely precise, meaning he requires almost no correction when using healing magic. Deshia explains that divine magic does not rely on complex spell structures. If someone prays sincerely from the heart and soul, the request can be answered, making constructs and simulations unnecessary. She adds that while a sentence structure for divine magic does exist, it is rarely needed. Before leaving, Deshia apologizes for her brief visit. Although she was curious to hear about Earth, she must return to her duties, leaving Akihiro with the knowledge she shared. After Deshia disappears, the system confirms that the previous error has been resolved. Akihiro remains alone in the quiet church. He realizes he has gained the power to heal Liz and his companions if they are ever injured, though he will need to calmly imagine the wound to use it properly. A notification appears, showing that he has newly acquired the skill Attribute Control Divine 1. 8. Recognizing its potential, Akihiro concludes that this ability is incredibly valuable. Akihiro returns home and greets Liz's mother, assuring her that his body is fine after the day's work. She reminds him that his efforts are well known and tells him to get some rest. Inside, Liz is finishing preparations for dinner and mentions that only plating the food remains once her father returns. Before the meal, Liz suggests they practice a little longer. She wants to train her defense using the shield as well, and Akihiro agrees to practice with her until dinner time. Outside, Akihiro begins training Liz. She holds her shield and hammer while he explains the exercise. Using a wooden stick, Akihiro tells her he will attack at random and instructs her to block the strikes with the shield. As the practice begins, Liz raises the shield and successfully blocks the incoming attack. As the training continues, Akihiro notices that Liz consistently catches the strikes at the center of her shield. Her reactions are precise, likely sharpened by her experience hunting with a bow. Impressed by her control, Akihiro explains that the shield can also be used offensively. By blocking properly, she can knock away an opponent's weapon or disrupt their stance. He encourages her to practice attacking with the shield as well. Normally, she would follow a block with a hammer strike, but learning to counterattack with the shield will give her more options in battle. While Akihiro and Liz continue their training, Liz's father returns home and notices them practicing late outside. Liz happily greets him and mentions that dinner is already prepared. Akihiro, still catching his breath, assures them that he is fine despite having recently recovered from sickness. Liz jokingly remarks that his exhaustion looks more like a lack of stamina than lingering illness. As they enter, Liz's father is surprised to learn how much money Akihiro has been earning through his work as an adventurer. During dinner, Liz's father reminds them not to become overconfident and emphasizes that their success was only possible thanks to teamwork. Akihiro admits that Liz has shown far more talent as an adventurer than he expected and says she could become an essential member of the group. Liz shyly explains that she only tried to copy the hunting techniques she had seen her father use. When Akihiro praises the way she defeated the goblin, her father listens in silent surprise. Liz enthusiastically promises to work harder and earn even more as an adventurer. Akihiro notes that her experience as a hunter is clearly helping her, while her father advises her to keep improving but never let her guard down. Later that night, after dinner, Akihiro helps wash the dishes despite Liz insisting it is her responsibility. During their conversation, he discovers that every morning she wakes up early to fetch water from the well and carry it home as part of her daily routine. Liz worries that Akihiro might be overworking himself, but he reassures her and offers to help fetch water starting the next day. She insists that he should rest, reminding him that adventuring is already exhausting work. Later that same night, Akihiro reflects that his new life still gives him more freedom than his old job. Sitting alone, he decides to organize everything he knows about magic, recalling that he was able to consult the goddess and obtain divine power. Akihiro experiments with magic in his room, first imagining himself flying through the sky, but the attempt fails. He then decides to test something simpler using a piece of paper. Instead of relying on the simulator, he focuses purely on imagery, visualizing wind pressure shaping and fixing the paper in place. Concentrating on the image, he activates the spell and executes the command. The piece of paper suddenly begins to float slightly above the table. Akihiro watches in surprise as the paper gently moves through the air before slowly falling back to the ground. Realizing that something worked, he becomes excited and runs outside, eager to test the magic further. Outside, Akihiro imagines wind blowing from the soles of his feet while visualizing his body floating. Determined to test it, he recreates the same mental image and activates the magic. As he takes a step forward, the force lifts him slightly off the ground. Akihiro realizes that the magic works exactly as he imagined. When he releases the mental image, the effect stops. By controlling the image, he can move forward, backward, left, and right, and can even spin while floating. To stop, he simply imagines a reverse motion, allowing him to control his movement in the air. Akihiro glides through the air, realizing that the sensation is similar to skating. Excited by the freedom of movement, he practices controlling his speed and direction while flying above the trees. As he gets used to it, he realizes that this ability could even be used in combat. For him, the experience is completely new and thrilling. Liz sees Akihiro outside late at night and calls out to him from the window. Surprised, he stops as she approaches and asks if he is still practicing. She explains that her mother was worried he might collapse from overworking. Suddenly, Akihiro lifts Liz into his arms and uses his magic to rise into the air. They float together above the ground, leaving Liz initially shocked. As she looks around in wonder, she realizes they are truly flying and reacts with excitement. Akihiro explains that the ability is magic. As he holds Liz, she becomes embarrassed and quietly admits that being so close to him makes her shy. Noticing this, Akihiro also becomes suddenly awkward. Akihiro admits that he is still clumsy with flight magic and needs more practice to control it properly. He explains that the sensation is similar to skating on ice and reflects on how he got carried away by excitement. Liz praises his hard work and dedication, calling him amazing. With a radiant smile, she promises to train even harder, so she does not fall behind and asks him to continue taking care of her. Akihiro reflects that he has finally acquired the skills necessary to survive in this world. Although his magic is still rudimentary, its range and potential are growing rapidly. Smiling, he encourages Liz to keep improving together. As he holds her hand, he feels excited about this new life, realizing that in this different world he can pursue what he desires, and this fills him with energy and determination. Liz excitedly tells the others that Akihiro lifted her into the air and flew while holding her. She describes the sensation as gliding over ice and says they even went higher than the house itself. Her enthusiastic account surprises the others listening. The next morning, Liz excitedly tells everyone about the previous night, describing how Akihiro flew while carrying her through the air. Fia becomes interested and says she also wants to try if it is that fun. Liz happily agrees, saying the experience felt like being carried by a prince and that her heart was racing. As Fia asks Akihiro if it is all right, he notices that she is looking at him very intensely. Akihiro realizes that Fia is still just a child, only 15 years old. When she insists on trying to fly as well, he decides that instead of carrying her the same way, a ride on his back would be more appropriate. Fia protests that the treatment is different, but Akihiro reflects that someone her age would normally still be in school in Japan, and questions whether it is truly right for someone so young to be fighting. Akihiro admits that he felt uncomfortable letting two girls fight monsters. Liz and Fia are surprised and insist that they are already adults, explaining that they are simply happy to earn money through their adventures. Hearing this, Akihiro understands and accepts their perspective, realizing that the two childhood friends have matured more than he expected. Akihiro carries Fia on his back and flies through the air. Excited, she shouts that it is amazing and urges him to go faster, while he complains about her yelling in his ear. Watching from below, Liz is surprised by the scene. After a short ride, Akihiro lands and says they are done, but Fia immediately asks for more. As soon as the ride ends, Fia quickly loses interest and complains that it is boring. Liz then steps in, saying she has had enough fun and that they should return to work. Before leaving, Liz shyly asks Akihiro if next time he could give her a ride on his back as well. Akihiro agrees with a smile, joking that it does not matter whether it is a ride on his back or even a hug. Liz becomes excited, but Fia quickly reminds them that they still have work to do. As they leave together, Liz suddenly becomes full of energy and declares that they should give their best and earn even more today, leaving the others slightly suspicious of her sudden enthusiasm. After the hunt, the group realizes they earned almost the same as the previous day. Fia decides to visit the general store after hearing that new accessories have arrived, while Akihiro plans to stop by the blacksmith. Liz says goodbye to both of them, curious about the new items and excited for the next day. Akihiro visits the blacksmith again and is greeted by the shop owner. He asks to see some spears and also requests that another item be made for him. The blacksmith shows him several short spears, sturdy and resistant to deformation. Akihiro asks if he can test one, and the owner allows him to try it in the yard. Akihiro tests the spear in the yard and quickly realizes that it is much heavier than he expected. It is the first time he has handled a real spear, and he struggles to wield it properly. He then asks the blacksmith about the price. The weapon costs 70,000, including the sheath, which makes Akihiro realize it is still quite expensive. Akihiro tries to wield the spear, but soon realizes it is much heavier than he expected. Since it is his first time handling a real spear, he struggles and admits that he underestimated their weight. When he asks the price, the blacksmith says it costs 70,000 and includes the sheath. Akihiro is surprised by the high cost. Akihiro decides to buy the spear and thanks the blacksmith for the deal. When asked about the other item he mentioned, Akihiro requests a scroll and something to write with. The blacksmith tells him the scroll and pen are on the table and allows him to use a room in the workshop to work. In the room, Akihiro begins thinking about the village's daily life. He remembers that people still draw water from wells manually, something Liz does every morning. Realizing how much effort this requires, he takes out his phone and looks at an image of a manual pump, thinking of a way to recreate something similar using the available tools. Using his phone as a reference, Akihiro studies the mechanism of a manual pump. He examines the diagram and begins sketching the design on the scroll, thinking that a pump would make drawing water much easier. After finishing, he apologizes for making the blacksmith wait and shows him the drawing. The blacksmith examines the sketch with interest, trying to understand the mechanism. The blacksmith studies the design and quickly understands the mechanism. Impressed, he explains that the pump uses a valve and lever system to lift water, simple yet ingenious. He says it would be a shame to keep such an invention to himself and suggests presenting it to the Viscount. If the news spreads, even the king might hear about it. Akihiro then asks if something like a patent exists, and the blacksmith explains that it would grant exclusive rights to sell the invention, since the Viscount governs the region and his father is a duke. The blacksmith explains that producing and selling the pump would require a large commercial enterprise, since Akihiro cannot do it alone. He suggests using a trusted merchant and having Akihiro receive a share of the profits. He adds that he has connections with the master of the blacksmith's guild and assures Akihiro that they will treat him fairly. Akihiro thinks carefully, remembering how Liz's mother struggles to fetch water every day. The blacksmith also notes that a forge uses a lot of water, so the invention would be useful to many people. Akihiro admits that his real goal is simply to introduce the pump quickly so people can start using it. The blacksmith quickly understands the project and says the structure is simple enough to be cast. He promises to create a prototype soon. Trusting him, Akihiro leaves the project in his hands and introduces himself. The blacksmith, Ness, shakes his hand and says he will deliver the prototype to Ast's house, where Akihiro is staying. Excited, Ness declares that the invention will greatly help his mother and jokes that Akihiro should consider him part of the family from now on. As he leaves the shop, Akihiro reflects that if the pump becomes widespread, it could greatly improve people's daily lives. He is grateful that a prototype will be produced so quickly. However, suddenly he wonders if introducing such technology could cause problems. Unsure, he decides he should ask the goddess directly and heads toward the church early. Akihiro asks the goddess Electoa whether spreading the manual pump throughout the world would cause problems. She reassures him that it would not. According to her, similar level technology would likely appear in this world soon anyway. Relieved, Akihiro thanks her for answering even while she is busy. Electoa casually mentions that she is trying a snack called potato chips, specifically a spicy strawberry flavor, which surprises Akihiro since he cannot even imagine what it would taste like. After speaking with Electoa, Akihiro declines her offer to try the strange snack and continues walking through the city, thinking that companies in Japan sometimes create unusual combinations. Soon after, he runs into Liz and Fia on the way back. Liz, excited, shows him a new bracelet she bought and proudly asks if it is pretty. Akihiro praises the bracelet, and she happily reveals that she bought one for him as well. Liz proudly shows the matching bracelets she bought for the festival, saying they make them feel like a true team. Fia loves the idea, and Akihiro thanks her, saying he will treasure it. Despite the relaxed atmosphere, Fia jokingly warns him that they will never become his partners. Laughing, the group returns home together, even knowing that more challenges still lie ahead.